Yeah, don't hesitate to go get stuff. Stand up, go down. That's fine. I often do these when I'm doing them in wine shops and in wineries, which are just fun places to do it. So there's people up and down all over the place. So that's cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a shorter program from the ones that I do at some of these other places. Kind of bring it a little bit so we don't keep you here way too long on this beautiful Wednesday night. And I'm going to tell a couple of stories, North Carolina tales. Both of these stories, where I encountered them, were from a collection called Grandfather Tales, which was a set of stories collected by a guy named Richard Chase. And that, his job, he was a collector of stories. He worked for the WPA back in the days when that existed post World War II. And this was published about 1948. So I played around with them a little bit, tried to bring them up. I hope that you'll enjoy it. There are a couple of little places that this is not the kinds of things that I tell the kids. In terms of the North Carolina stories, these are storytelling for grown-ups. So I hope you'll enjoy it. The first story is called Wicked John and the Devil. And a lot of these stories, they came from the Scots, Irish, Germanic tradition going way back, and then were brought over to the Appalachian Mountains as people came in and as they settled in. And this story, this Wicked John and the Devil, it's actually an example of one of the oldest types of stories, of these folktale stories that folklorists are familiar with. Some people say that versions of this story go back 6,000 to 7,000 years. And it involves somebody like a miller, or in this case a blacksmith, and their encounter with the personification of evil, or in this case the devil. So Wicked John, well, he was called Wicked John because basically he was mean. He never had a kind word to say about anybody. Never went to church. Mocked anybody who did. Just ornery, grumpy. We would just call him, in today's terms, I'll keep it PG-13, an a-hole. But he did have a couple of redeeming qualities. Well, maybe one real redeeming quality. His redeeming quality was that he would always treat a stranger right. It's like that Southern hospitality thing, right? You may hate your neighbor, but you're going to treat the stranger right. And he was good at his job. He was a good blacksmith. He was the only one really for miles around, too. So he never lacked for work. So one day, John, he's in his shop as usual. He's at his anvil. He's got his hammer. He's working away, and he looks up and he kind of happens to see out the door. There's someone walking toward him. An old guy, an old man, using two sticks and just hobbling slowly, painfully, taking a long time, walking toward the shop, and finally makes it to the door, and is just standing there at the door, all dressed in rags, looking pathetic. Oh, John, he stops what he's doing, puts down his hammer, goes over to the door and says, what do you want? And the old guy says, sir, I've been walking all day, and I'm really tired. And I was wondering if you might let me just come in and sit for a moment. And John looks at him and goes, all right, come on. And he opened the door for him, and he brought him over and sat down on the stool. Sit right there, and just wait there for a minute. Old man sits himself down, and John goes off to the house for a few minutes. Comes back, he's got a plate just laden with food. Ham and greens, potato and beans, a big slice of cake, and a tall, cool glass of milk. And he gives it to the old guy, who just tucks in and just starts eating greedily. And Johnny goes back to his anvil, and he just gets back to work. But he's keeping an eye on his guest, because he figures, soon as he's done eating, right, he can get his name. Then he won't be a stranger anymore, and he can send him packing on his way. So the old man, he's just eating up and eating up. Finally he stops, he sets his plate down, and then, before John can do anything, the old man starts getting up, and he's rising, and he's getting bigger and taller, and he straightens out, and the rags fall off, and he's dressed in a long flowing robe with a golden belt and a golden key dangling from it. And at this moment, even John was at a lack for words. And then the old man speaks. He says, "Well, John, as you may have guessed, I am Saint Peter." Yep, that's right, Saint Peter, the guardian of the golden gates and the pearly gates themselves. And let me tell you what I do. Once a year I come down to earth in disguise. And I walk and I walk and I walk until I find someone who treats me right. And that person, I give 3 wishes. And today, John, that's going to be you. Well, John thinks about this for a minute. He goes, 3 wishes, huh? All right. I got an idea. You see my old rocking chair here? My old high king back rocker? Well, seems like every time I want to sit in my old rocking chair, there's one of these guys from the village, someone I'm doing some work for, and they've gone and sat down in it, and I got to go around to getting them out and fussing and rousting them out. I just wish that anybody who sits in my rocker can't get out. And they get to rocking and rocking and rocking until I say they can stop. Well, St. Peter says, that's a new one. But if that's what you want, John, that's the way it'll be. All right. You've got a second wish coming. You might want to think about it a little bit. But John, he's starting to have fun. He's going around, going, wish number 2. I got it. Now, you see my hammer over here, my old 10-pounder. Well, seems like every time I want to use it, it's these boys down from the village. They come in, they sneak in here, they take my hammer, they go out across the road trying to break rocks. Every time I want to use my hammer, I gotta go out looking for it, and I just wish anyone who touches my hammer, they can't let it go. And they get to pounding and pounding and pounding until I say they can stop. St. Peter says, okay, all right. If that's the way you want it, John, that's the way it's going to be. You've got one more wish. You might want to think about it. Maybe something about your immortal soul. John, he's just having too much fun now. He's going, the 3rd wish. Okay, I know exactly what I want. Now, you see my old thorn bush right outside my door there? Yeah. I love that thorn bush. But it seems like these folks are always coming around and they're running over with their wagon wheels or they're breaking off a piece to use as a switch. I just wish anyone so much as touches that thorn bush gets caught and gets stuck in there and thrashed in and they can't get out until I let them. Well, Peter says, well, he doesn't say anything at this point. He just kind of sighs, nods, and disappears. And John, he goes back to his work, and he didn't care. He just goes back to work to the end of the day. Well, so that's John. Now, it may come as a surprise that John was actually married. And it may come as no surprise that they did not get along very well. In fact, every morning started pretty much the same way. They would get to fussing. He would fuss, and she would fuss, and then she would fuss, and he would fuss, and they'd get louder and louder and louder until finally she just had enough and she says, "Old man, I just wish the devil would take you and I wouldn't even care. And then she'd scoop down, pick up a piece of firewood, and chuck it at his head. And John, he would duck, and he would laugh, and then he would go off to his day of work. You know, to tell you the truth, this was actually pretty much his favorite part of the day. And so this went on day after day after day. And the devil had been listening to this for, like 20 years. And he finally said, well, maybe I just gotta get up there and see what this is about. So he sends one of his sons, sends his youngest. Coincidentally, the way these things go, just happened to be the very next day after John's visit from St. Peter. So John is working in his shop. He's just kind of hitting some horseshoes there, and he sees someone in the doorway. It's a little devil, little guy, about this big. He's got little horns, got a little tail. He's all red. John goes over to the door and he says, yeah, what do you want? Little devil says, please, hi, mister. My daddy says that he'd like to meet you, and he set me up here. He said I should take you down right now, and because he kind of wanted to talk to you, and then just say howdy. And John says, oh, he does, huh? Okay, well, that could be fun. But tell you what, I just need a few minutes. I got some horseshoes I'm finishing up here, so I know you just wait a minute, right? And come on in, make yourself at home, and I'll be with you in just a little bit. So Johnny goes back to his anvil, and he's just working and working and working. And the little devil, he walks into his shop, and he's kind of looking around. He's poking here, poking there. He was the curious type, right? And then he's poking around, and he sees that chair. And he thinks, well, that'd be a nice place to wait. So he goes and he sits himself down in that chair. And then the chair starts rocking. Back and forth. Back and forth. Faster and faster and faster and faster. His head is hitting the back, going whammity bang, whammity bang, whammity bang. The devil starts calling out, Mister, make a stop, make a stop, make a stop. John goes, make it stop, huh? Well, all right, tell you what, you promise me you won't ever come up here, bother me ever again? The devil goes, I promise, I promise, I promise. John says, all right, you can go. The devil, he jumps up, runs out, runs so fast, just the little dirt is just streaking right by him as he's running across the road, popping up little balls of dust. And John, he just goes back to work, just kind of laughing to himself. He didn't care. Well, next day, pretty much the same thing. He and his wife had their little chat. John went off to work, got started working on a wagon wheel this time. And he's just trying to figure out this wheel, and he looks in the doorway, and there's another devil in the doorway. Bigger devil, about medium size. Had a medium-sized horns, medium-sized tail. He was all red too. Had a bored look on his face. He was a teenager. John goes over the door and he says, yeah, well, what do you want? This little medium-sized devil says, Mister, my daddy says that you gotta come down and see him right now, and I'm supposed to bring you down, and I'm not supposed to take any guff off of you. So if you're all right, let's just get going. And John says, all right, well, tell you what, son, yeah, I'm almost done. I'm just working on this wheel over here. So, and he starts walking right away to it before the devil can even say anything else. So I know you won't mind. I just want you to just hold on a minute, and I'll be with you as soon as I can. And he just walks right back to his work, and he starts working. Well, at this point, the devil, he's not quite sure what to do. So he walks in, and he's looking at John, and he sees that John's kind of trying to hold that wheel. He's got it in one hand like this, and he's got the hammer over here, and it's really awkward kind of John. Right? And John's trying to kind of hammer over here, and the devil's thinking to himself, oh man, this is gonna take a long time. It's gonna take forever. My dad's gonna be really mad. So he says, listen, mister, there's no way you're gonna get done. Let me help you. Let me help you. What if I take that hammer and I can help hit that? And John says, well, I think that would be fine. So the devil takes that hammer, and the second he touches it, he starts going up and down, up and down, faster and faster and faster, going whammity bang, whammity bang, whammity bang. Going those says, Mister, make it stop, make it stop, make it stop. John goes, oh, man, make it stop, huh? All right, I'll tell you what. You promise you won't come up here and bother me ever again? Devil goes, I promise. John says, all right, you can go. Devil drops the hammer, scoots off even faster than his little brother did. And John, he went back to work, pretty much laughing. He didn't care. Well, next morning, same as every morning, John got that nice piece of firewood chucked at his head, laughed, went to work. Starting in there, he's doing a little work with his anvil, and a shadow fills the door. And standing there in the doorway was the old boy himself. Full-size devil. Big long horns. Big long tail. He was all red too. His big old cow's foot. Just there on the doorstep, tapping away. John goes up to him and says, yeah, what do you want? Devil says, after a pause a while. Devil says, John, I don't like the way you treated my boys. Come up here to get you myself. And you're going to come with me right now. John says, all right, sir, I'll be with you in just a minute. I just got a little bit of work to do. Tell you what, why don't you come on in here? You can sit in my chair. I'm not sitting in your chair. John says, oh, well, that's all right. But I do have this bit of work to do. It might go faster if you help me. What if you pick up this hammer? I'm not touching your hammer. John, you're coming with me now, and no more funny business. And then he takes John by the scruff of the neck, and he pulls him and drags him out the door. John, he'd been blacksmithing for a good long time. He was pretty strong, and he was pretty tough, and he wasn't going to be about to go anywhere without a fight. So he starts in hitting the devil, and the devil starts hitting him back, and they're punching, and they're clawing, and they're scratching, and they go 2, 3, 4 rounds. Right there on the front doorstep, until finally the devil says, yeah, I'm gonna flay the skin off you, see if I don't. And he reaches down to that thorn bush to grab a switch. And the second he touched that, he was dragged in, thrashing, legs going until he's just, the needle's just biting into him, until he's just trapped in the middle, his arms and his cow's feet sticking up out of the top. And John, he just kind of got himself up, brushed himself off, laughed a little bit, and went back to work. He didn't care. So the day goes by, nighttime comes, work is finished. John decides it's time to go on home, see if he and the missus can have another little chat. And he's walking home, and he's going right by the thorn bush, and he thinks he hears something. Sounds like a kind of little whisper. Mister. John goes to the thorn bush. There's the devil still in there, arms and cow's feet sticking up. John says, what do you want now? The devil says, can I please go now? John says, you want to go, huh? Well, all right, tell you what. You promise me you won't send anybody else up here to get me ever. You won't ever come yourself. You're going to leave me alone. And the devil says, I promise. John says, all right, you can go. And the devil, he jumped out of there, and he went back. He went quicker than corn through a goose. Yeah, let's think about that one for a second. So John never saw the devil again, and the years went on, and he did his work, and he got meaner and meaner as each year went by. He and his wife continued to have their little chats every day, and one day it came to pass that John, as all things must, passed away. I know, everyone was very sad. And when John realized he was dead, he figured, well, must be somewhere I go. So, well, he decides he tries to see what might happen up in heaven. So he starts walking, and he's walking and walking, and he walks and he walks, comes to a stairway, goes up the stairway, pretty long little steps, but he persevered, keeps going up, and finally came there to the pearly gates, and there was St. Peter himself. And St. Peter looks up and he says, John, what are you doing here? And John says, well, I thought I might have some chance of getting in. And St. Peter says, oh, John. No, John. I mean, John, I was looking at your page just the other day. Here, let me show you. He pulls out just this big old book, and he starts leafing through, and there find these H, the I. Okay, there's the J's. He says, see, John, here it is, right here. I mean, look, and yeah, here it's true. Here in the front, on the front, there's a few lines here at the top, a few entries. But John, on the back is full, top to bottom. I had to write really small. Even had to fill in the margins. Oh no, John. There's no chance of you getting in here. John goes up. Well, dang nabbit. Well, then, what do you think I should do? And St. Peter says, well, John, now, I say this with all the love I have, but I guess you just might as well go to hell. So John thinks about this, and he says, well, it's all right, sounds good to him. He really didn't care. So he turned around and walked off the other day, walked down the steps, and just kept on walking and walking. Had his hands in his pockets, just whistling a little tune, just waiting until he gets there. And as he's walking along, he's getting close. He's approaching the gates of hell. And there's the devil's two boys playing right there in front of the gates. They look up, they see John, and they run in screaming, Daddy, 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 come quick, it's Wicked John. And the devil comes over there, looks out, and he says, bar the gates, boys, and bring me the padlocks. And by the time John got up to the gate, he got there just to see the devil putting the last of 5 padlocks on the gate. Well, John looks at him and he says, what are you doing? I was hoping to come on in there, you know, and the devil says, oh no, John. Oh no, I won't have you. I mean, I know you'll run this place to the ground in no time. Oh no, I won't have you. No, you cannot come in here. Oh, now John doesn't know what to do. He goes, well, confound it. I mean, what am I supposed to do? Peter won't let me up in there. Now you're saying I can't come in here. Well, where exactly am I supposed to go? Well, the devil, he had an idea, and he said, well, here, tell you what I'll do for you, John. And he picked up this gourd. Apparently there's just a bunch of gourds lying around hell. Don't know why, but there are. So he picked up this gourd and he hollowed it out. And then he reached over to one of the furnaces and he pulled out a few hot coals, right? And he gave it through the gate to John. And he said, John, here you go. Now you just take that and you just walk out and then you go find yourself a hell of your own. So John, he takes the gourd with the coals in it, and he starts walking and walking and walking. And you know, if you ever go to the Great Dismal Swamp, you might see a little bobbing light walking around in the night. Now, some people say it's swamp gas. And some people say it's the will-o'-the-wisp. But we know what it really is. It's Wicked John, still looking for a little bit of help to call his own. And that's all there is to that story. That's just part of the program I do around North Carolina stories. I have a couple more with that, and then I do like some history of some of the counties, mystery, like supernatural stuff for Chatham and Orange County. So it's a longer thing. One more North Carolina story. Sometimes I'm hesitant to tell this story because I figure everybody knows it, right? I mean, everybody knows, I'm sure, about dry fry, right? It might be easier to just see. Is there anybody who doesn't know dry fry? Really? Dry fry, yeah.
Dry fry.
No, I'm sure you know dry fry. All right, well, you know what? Before I do the story,
Estes.
Before I do the story, let me tell you a little something about dry fry. See, I think we just need to jog your memory. Okay, so dry fry was a preacher, itinerant preacher man. But mostly what he preached for was the collection plate and all the fried chicken he could eat. And dry fry just loved fried chicken. Well, so there's a story about dry fry that one day he's at a picnic and he's just got a big old plate of fried chicken and he's just jawing away. If there's one thing that dry fry liked almost as much as fried chicken, it was hearing his own voice talk. Nothing like me. And he's just jawing away and eating the chicken when all of a sudden his false teeth just kind of fly out of his mouth. And they do a somersault and a swirl and they land in a mud puddle. Big old mud and sink to the bottom. Yeah. Well, now everybody felt kind of bad for dry fry. They wanted to help him, but nobody wanted to, kind of reach in there and in that mud and get the teeth out. Well, that's when little Ginny Johnson, she had an idea. She was just as sharp as a tack. So she went and she got herself a big piece of fried chicken from one of the baskets and tied a string around it. And then she dangled it right over that mud hole. And sure enough, those teeth came chomping up and just latched onto that chicken. And then all she had to do was kind of pry him off, untie it, wash him off with some lemonade, and she gave him back to dry fry, and he was good as new. So, are you starting to remember him a little bit? Still no. All right. What can they say? Well, all right, let me tell you one more story. A pretty story about dry fry before we do the story. There was another story about it. One day, dry fry was really upset because someone had stolen his bicycle. And he had no good way to get the meat and all that kind of stuff. So he's just complaining about somebody who stole his bicycle. And his man says, now dry fry, if you really want to get your bicycle back, I'll tell you what you can do. Listen, you just got to get yourself to the next meeting. Just get yourself there somehow. And you get up in front of the congregation and you start in with those commandments, right? And then you just tell them whichever way you want. It doesn't matter. But when you get to the one that says, thou shalt not steal, you just freeze and you point at the congregation with a steely eye. And the one who stole who gets nervous will be the one who stole your bicycle. Well, dry fry, he thought that was a great idea. So he managed, he got himself over to meeting the next week, and he got up there, and he started in on those commandments. And he took that first one and put it in last, and took the last one and put it in the middle, and then when he got to the one that said, and thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, he remembered where he left his bicycle. Now see, now you're starting to build some familiarity with it, right? You're starting to remember dry fry a little. So we can get on to the actual story. So one evening, dry fry, well, he finagled himself an invitation to this farmer's house, because the farmer's known for just having some of the best fried chicken around. And so he's there at dinner, and they're just eating and talking and eating, and then suddenly, dry fry stops. He sits, staring, and then keels over. This is the sad part of the story. Dry fry died. Now, let's say awe. Well, imagine how the farmer felt. He goes, "Law me. There ain't nobody gonna believe that dry fry didn't know how to put down a piece of chicken. But they're gonna think that I killed him, and they're gonna hang me for murder for sure. Oh, I gotta get rid of him." So he goes and he picks dry fry up, and he kind of works him out of the house and down the path and just up a little hill where there's this big bush. And he kind of works dry fry so that he's just propped it nicely in the bush, not going anywhere. Good job. And then he goes back home to see if he can finish what was left to do. So it was a really nice night. Full moon was out. A night for lovers, and the lovers were walking down the path. And two of them were just walking along, and they were just holding on to each other and holding hands and stopping every now and then to play a little kissy face. And then walking along a little more, when suddenly she looks and she says, "Look, what is that?" And he looks over, they see this shape up by the bush. And he says, "I know what that is. That's one of those highway robbers. And he's waiting for us to take our stuff. We're going to show him." And so they reach down and they pick up some rocks. And they throw those rocks. Boom, boom, boom. And one of them hits dry fry. Down he goes. And so they run over there to see who it is and see what's there. And they go, "Oh my, it's old dry fry." Because everybody knows old dry fry. They say, "Oh, we done killed him. They're going to hang us for murder for sure. Oh, don't be ashamed. We're so young. We got to get rid of him." So working together, they pick old dry fry up, and they walk him up in the other direction. And they walk and walk and walk about 15, 20 minutes. Finally come to a corn crib up on the farm. And they manage to just kind of lean dry fry over by that corn crib, get them all settled. Worked out pretty well. And then off they went, back down the road, hanging to each other in the moonlight, playing smacky mouth and huggy bear and all those kinds of things. Until they got home. And so the night passed, and finally the sun started to come up. And over at the farm, the corn crib, the farmer, he'd gotten up early. He was out there with cold water splashing his face. Folks had been stealing from him, and he was not going to let it happen again. So he's done getting himself all washed up, and he goes and looks out the window, and he sees someone standing by the corner. So he leans his head out the window and he says, hey, you there, you get away from there." Not a sound. He says, no, I'm serious. You get away from there, I'm going to shoot. He's right. Not a sound. Dry Fry's having a rough time. Robert says, "All right, I mean it now," and bam! Down he goes. Farmer runs out to see who it was, and he goes, "Law me, it's old dry fry," because everybody knows old dry fry. And he says, "Oh, I killed him, and now I'm going to be hung for murder for sure. Oh, I got to get rid of him." But it was broad daylight, early morning, so he knew he had to wait until the night. So he managed to get dry fry up and kind of worked him into the corn crib. It wasn't too hard because rigor mortis has been starting to set in. I never know whether to do that joke or not. It's in the original, but and kind of gets him in there, and then goes into the house and just waits nervously all day until the night comes, and it falls and gets darker and darker, and finally he thinks, okay, this is the time. So he goes and he gets himself a burlap sack, like everyone's got, right? Yeah. Gets his burlap sack, and then he works dry fry into the sack, and then he kind of lifts the sack up over his shoulder and starts down the road. Yeah. Figures maybe he can find a good place in the woods, someplace where no one will look. Well, as he's struggling down the road one way, coming up over the hill on the other side are these two rogues, these two thieves. And they've been out that night stealing. And they each had a big old burlap sack filled with hog meat. So they see the farmer walking this way. They think, "Oh, no, we can't get caught here." So they drop their bags and they go off into the woods. They run back, trying to go deep enough so that whoever's coming by won't see them. Well, the farmer, he's walking up with his sack, and he comes to that spot, and he sees those two sacks on the road below. So he puts his down, and he goes over and he looks. Sees it's filled with hog meat. Now he figures that a sack full of hog meat is a better deal than a sack full of dry fry. See, I like that joke. And so he picks the sack up, and he heads off back home. Well, after a little while, the two robbers, the two rogues, they come out of the woods, and they're just fussing at each other, and John blaming each other for who did what and who left it in the road, and they see the two sacks are still there. So each one picks one up, and they head back over home, and they hang the sacks up in the meat house, and then they go to bed. Well, early the next morning, one of the wives of the two rogues comes out. She's got her butcher knife in her hand. She's heading over to the meat house, gonna get a little meat for breakfast. I should have explained. Remember, this was a hard Scrabble time. This is the kind of humor. Getting some meat for breakfast, and then she gets over to the meat house and she sees the two sacks hanging right there. And so she's looking at it, kind of, waving the knife, making her decision. And finally, she picks one and she puts a big rip in it, and out comes old dry fry.
Oh, nice.
And she screams, and she runs out of the meat house, runs up to the house, tears the kitchen door right off its hinges, and then runs into the house. She was sort of scared. And the two rogues, they come out and go, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" She says, "Go look in the meat house." And they run in, and they look over there, and they say, "Law me, it's old dry fry," because everybody knows old dry fry. They say, "Oh, we done killed him, and with our trouble with the law, nobody will believe we did it. They're going to hang us for murder for sure. Well, we got to get rid of him." Well, as it so happens, these two rogues, they'd come across this corpse just the other day that they'd gotten into their field, and this horse, well, he was no ordinary horse. He had steam steam coming out of his nostrils and his ears and his mouth and all 4 hooves at once. And they went and they got that horse and they got Dry Fry and they kind of propped him up. On top of the horse had a little bit of a saddle that they found and they kind of tied him in there. And then they found a big old hat and they put it on top of Dry Fry's head. And then they went back and they reared off and they gave that horse such a smack, boom, that it was heard in the next county. And that horse took off running, and those 2 rogues were off after him going, "Help! Help! That man, he stole our horse! He stole our horse!" My face just bopping around. People start coming out and they say, "Hey, stole! Horse thief! Horse thief!" And everybody's there doing whatever, they're picking up rocks and taking out their guns and chucking rocks and shooting. And that horse, he just keeps going and he jumps over that only fence in town and heads off up the hills. Never seen in those parts again. But people say that that horse has been seen from the Black Mountains of Asheville to the White Mountains of New Hampshire. In fact, anywhere you go, people might be out having a picnic or in the winter maybe doing some snow skiing, when they'll see something go by out of the corner of their eye. And everywhere you hear people say, "Law me." Now, doesn't that look just like old Dry Fry? Because everybody knows old Dry Fry. All right, that's the end of that story. I'm not sure about telling that, but well, that's right at my time frame that I was going to try to keep you today. So I hope that was at least somewhat enjoyable. Shameless self-promotion, April 11th, I'll be at Fire Clay Vineyards in Chatham County. The theme of that story is wine stories. Everything all around wine in one way or another. Sunday, April 11th at 5 o'clock. I'll send some information at some point. Otherwise, thanks a lot. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.
All right, that's it, but we do have 2 birthdays today. We do. Yeah, Miss Ramadan. Yeah. Happy birthday. And Miss Griffin. So you all can just make sure your trash makes it, grab some things on the way out. Push your chairs under. And we hope you enjoy this time together. These straws are like this.
You say it's
That's all right.
Hey, you.
I'm good. How are you? Good.